Good evening, everybody. The date is April 30th of 2016, and I want to welcome you to my special weekend edition of the Nick of Time News Show. I want to thank you for tuning in. As always, I am your host, Nick Dorsey, and I have a great program planned out for everyone today. On Saturdays, I did want to try something a little different. Instead of the long commentaries and mostly political news, I wanted to give you the chance to hear some more lighthearted sports and random news stories that I have planned for you today. Before I get started, I do want to just make sure that if you are listening, you are following me on Twitter at NickOfTimeNews. On Twitter, it's just simply at NickOfTimeNews. Also, feel free to drop some love in my DM. Lastly, if you're watching on YouTube, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Should be fairly quick, just a little click, and we are done, and you have liked and subscribed. Now, moving on. Before I jump into the news stories I have for you today, I did want to take a very brief moment and talk about the update from my Trump commentary, which was released last night. Before I get on to the more fun stuff, I really felt like the Trump commentary was necessary to let you know the response from yesterday. Most people did love it. Some Trump fans didn't. I kind of expected that. It's okay. At least we are talking about it. Some people explained to me that there was just a little confusion on which side I was defending, and for that I apologize. I was definitely trying to be clear, as I will always do. To sum up what I was trying to say, I know it was a 20-minute tangent, but basically where I was going with it was there are some horrible, horrible things taking place in the country. Some of it's things that are happening that have been happening. Some of it actually has to do with Trump. Now, conservatives have been making the argument that protesters are trying to silence or actually silencing Trump. But it is, in fact, without a doubt, the other way around. Not only is Trump not silent, he's actually one of the loudest voices we've heard for the last almost year or so, thanks almost exclusively to mainstream media. My point yesterday was to say that people want free speech, but speech is not free from consequence and retaliation. You can have free speech, but you should expect that not everyone is going to agree with what you say, and there may be some consequences for what you are saying. Now, I know it's easy to judge protesters from the sidelines or from the comfort of your home, but you have to understand that these are the people that want to be heard. When you take away the voice of a whole group of people and you label them and you scapegoat them, sometimes the last resort is to block some traffic and make some noise, because at the end of the day, we're largely being ignored, especially as a common American voter. The voice of the middle class, of the lower class, of the working class is largely being ignored in the favor of corporate interests. So sometimes different routes have to be taken in order to garner attention for a certain issue. Something that has to get the attention of the people who either don't care, don't pay attention, or even cheer on Trump. Most of the people I've talked to about it have outrage now, but the not caring, the not paying attention on a regular basis are the reasons that it came to this in the first place. So you can't just have outrage now if you spend most of the time not caring. We need to stand up and care. And most importantly, we need to act. We need to understand that politics are the forefront of the country, and it's why our lives are the way they are for the most part. If the worst thing that's ever happened in this country is some protesters got rowdy and tried to push over a cop car, then I can only imagine that our country would be in a much better place. Because that's not even close to something that could be considered possibly maybe being the worst thing that's ever happened. By all means, feel outrage. But all I ask is that you please please direct it towards the right source. Now, that is officially way more time than I ever wanted to dedicate to Donald Trump, and I'd like to move on and give you guys some news. Before I go, I want to share a couple of cool news stories I found with you. Some are interesting, some are just more fun. We do have some interesting things going on today. Obama is attending his 8th and final White House Correspondents' Dinner. The annual dinner, of course, will be hosted by the White House Correspondents Association. And since it does somewhat serve as the president's annual roast, there's usually a comedian pulled in to perform. This year, it looks like Larry Wilmore is going to go ahead and share some jokes at the expense of our commander-in-chief. He is the regular host on the nightly show on Comedy Central, which, for those that don't know, is the show that filled Stephen Colbert's space. So I have checked it out. It's pretty funny. I'm definitely looking forward to what he says about our commander-in-chief. A lot of sports news going on today as well. The NFL draft, which is arguably the most interesting thing that takes place in the offseason, is wrapping up today. After 7 rounds that have taken place in the last 3 days, every team has officially picked all of their college prospects to join them at the highest level of play. Now, it was an interesting draft, and while there are many, many headlines, the one that surprised me the most is most likely Oakland Raiders. In the final round, they swung a trade with the Cleveland Browns to snag former Michigan quarterback Connor Cook. Now, it's surprising in a couple of methods and for different reasons, mainly because Cook was expected to go much, much sooner, and a couple of quarterbacks who were not ranked in many of the draft prospects, rankings, they had him a lot sooner than some of the quarterbacks that were taken much, much sooner than him. And especially the fact that the Raiders, sacrifice anything to move up, to pull up a quarterback is just surprising because they already have a very solid starting quarterback who they believe to be the franchise quarterback of the future, or at least, of course, it seemed that way. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the rest plays out. One of the losers on that end of the deal is definitely the Houston Texans. Now, they did snag away Denver's quarterback of the future, and because of that, they actually got rid of Brian Hoyer, who was their starting quarterback from last year. But now they're bringing him back because Cook was off the board. They said that they were going to go ahead and sign quarterback Brian Hoyer, so that way he could back up their starting quarterback. Now, in NBA news, it's playoff time. The Clippers, who have lost 2 of their best players to season-ending injuries, were not able to make up the difference with a rotation of mostly bench players, unfortunately. They were eliminated from playoff contention last night by the Portland Trailblazers. Portland will move on to play NBA's best Golden State Warriors in the second round. Now, the Warriors are playing without their star as well, since Steph Curry has been ruled out. But that did not stop them from eliminating the Houston Rockets in round 1. So it should be interesting to see how these 2 teams fare against each other. Meanwhile, last night also saw 2 matchups on the east side of the bracket push their first round series contests to Game 7s. Those 2 contests are the only Game 7s of the playoffs so far, and it will feature the Bulls versus the Hornets on Sunday night, and also the Raptors versus the Pacers on Sunday night. They are the last teams playing in their first round playoff matchup, and they will play each other in round 2. Whoever wins will be the ones that make up the 4th and final matchup of the playoffs in the second rounds. Whether that's Bulls versus Raptors, Hornets versus Pacers, we will definitely be finding out in the next couple days here. Now, the other 3 teams in the second round have already been determined and are set to start as soon as tonight, where the Thunder and Spurs will be doing Game 1 today. The other 2 matchups are the Cavaliers and the Hawks, and the previously mentioned Warriors and Trail Blazers. So whoever wins these 4 matchups in Game 7 series will move on to the semifinals. Now, in truly random news, it looks like Reza Bellucci, the 44-year-old man who tried to run across the ocean back in 2014, is facing legal trouble. He was rescued for, again, the second time. He was rescued again. You definitely heard that right. He has been rescued once before in a flotation device, not unlike the making of a balloon-type hamster wheel. Now, of course, he was let off with a warning by the Coast Guard to say, don't waste our money and time and resources and don't do this again. Now, since he did not heed that warning, and this is the second time, it does look like he will face up to 7 years in prison and or a huge civil fine. When asked about it, Bellucci was very confident that there will be a third attempt. Now, speaking of legal trouble, it looks like Snapchat could be in a little bit of a hot water situation. They are looking at a large lawsuit about one of their new filters. As most people know, especially in the younger generation, Snapchat has released a lot of filters over the last several months that allow you to alter the pictures and short videos you can take with the app using special effects. One of the filters allows users to record and display their current speed. Now, obviously, the feature was designed for when you're the passenger of a car or the passenger of a train or perhaps even when you're jogging. But it looks like Crystal McGee, who is only 18 years of age, was allegedly driving 107 miles per hour. 107. That is absolutely ridiculous and unacceptable. But the reason that she was doing it was because she wanted to win a quote-unquote trophy off the Snapchat app. But when she was going 107 miles, she struck Maynard Wentworth, who was an Uber driver in a Mitsubishi, and Wentworth actually suffered permanent brain damage. So it effect will last for as long as he's alive, and that's just really not cool. People really need to start taking driving a lot more seriously. You're in a huge machine. Be smart, people. Don't text. Don't go on social media. Don't check your emails, because you're not just putting your life at risk. You're putting the lives of other people at risk. And that's never okay. So, just wanted to kind of highlight that story because they are suing the social media company for damages. And Wentworth also, besides suing Snapchat, is suing Crystal McGee herself for, I'd imagine, medical expenses, pain and suffering, and everything else that comes along with a life-altering injury. So, seriously, not a joke, not funny. Stop that. There's no need. There's nothing that is that important that you need to be pulling out your phone on the highway and doing anything with it. So, I wanted to wrap up with a little bit of political news. A controversial bill may soon be coming out of Oklahoma City. The Republican-dominated House of Representatives approved a Senate bill on Thursday. The anti-abortion bill may soon reach the governor if the Senate approves the minor changes recommended by the House. Now, the bill will allow the state to actually revoke medical licenses from those that perform abortions. So, a handful of representatives did argue that it's against the Constitution to take away a doctor's right to practice for performing a procedure that right now is legal. So even though they would be performing a legal procedure, they would come under review and they would have the opportunity to have their license to practice medicine revoked. So if the changes are approved, it will soon head to the desk of Oklahoma Republican Governor Mary Fallin. Should Fallin sign the bill, opponents argue they will immediately challenge in court. Now, this can mean a lot of problems for a state that's already having financial issues. They're strapped for cash. They don't have the money to be going in large, long legal battles. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. And I will definitely be doing more commentary on this should it reach the point where it's past the governor's desk and signed into law. Which actually kind of leads me to my next point, which is the next episode that I will release is going to come out at the beginning of next week. And I'm going to start off by discussing the controversial anti LGBT bills that are happening around the country, including the nationally discussed and controversial bathroom bill. That will be on my next episode, so please don't miss it. Don't forget to tune into that episode. I do hope that you enjoyed the show today. Again, follow me on Twitter. I would like to go ahead and be able to share news and commentary and things like that with you on Twitter. So at NickOfTimeNews on Twitter. And of course, like I always tell people, if you find any fact check corrections, go ahead and email them to me or tweet them. You can email them at nickoftimenews@gmail.com. I always want to make sure that you are getting the absolute 100% best correct information that is available. And as always, share with everybody. Please find some time to donate to the campaign if you can. The GoFundMe link is in the description. And I do want to thank you for tuning in to this special edition of Nick of Time News. And of course, I want to thank you for your continued support. This has been your host, Nick Dorsey. Until next time.